This is Glambition Radio, episode number 209 with Cahn, founder and CEO of IFundWomen. Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and mom of twins. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are rewriting the rules for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And we're doing it with style. Let's go. Man, oh man, you're about to meet a horse of a different color. Cahn is everything I love and miss about New York. And I think I tell her that in the interview, but you are in for a treat because what I love about her is she's not all talk either. You know, a lot of people are talking up the fund women game. Let's get more women funding, blah, blah, blah. And IFundWomen actually funds women with things as simple as crowdfunding and grants all the way to expert business coaching. She really knows her stuff, has great connections. I said, let's get her on the show because I love her attitude. She's saying that, you know what, for women right now, making sure that we secure non-debt financial backing should be one of our first priorities right now. No bones about it, like based on everything we've been watching the last 2 months, especially. So you're going to find this entertaining, but also extremely informative and get you to think a little differently on how you are funding up your business. And first, a reminder, though, that our show today is sponsored by The Trust. It's the new private premier network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. If you or another female leader you know is craving more powerful connections, more elevated conversations, and a modern platform for connecting with other high-performing women globally, it's here. Visit jointhetrust.org for more details. And if you qualify, please request a brief informational interview. We've got some incredible events, both virtual and physical, later this year coming up. We're going to have, of course, contingency plans in place, but we ain't stopping. This is needed more than ever, especially based on the inane conversations I see happening online right now. It's like the blind leading the blind. Surround yourself with women who have done the work. They've reached the numbers. They're proven. That's who you want to be around. Jointhetrust.org. And a quick shout out to 2 great reviews that my team picked up off of iTunes for me to share today. Kristen Yarker from Canada. Let's face it, we entrepreneurs think differently than the mainstream. We need to protect ourselves from the all too common naysayers as we build our businesses. I tune into every episode of Glambition Radio to learn from and be inspired by women who are further along the entrepreneurial journey than I am currently. Thank you, Allie, for your intelligent conversation with these amazing women. And Christine Walsh, I've been listening to Allie for almost a year and have found the podcast gives me the words I need and want to hear from other 7- and 8-figure women in business. I finally found someone that speaks my language and helps me build my own brand with her wisdom. Thank you, Allie. Thank you so much. And we so appreciate it when you take a minute to just go leave a review. You will be rewarded. We have another special Glambition Journal giveaway coming up. And this isn't like one of those drawings that we put hundreds of names in a hat and pull one. You left a review, you're going to get one. And we will tell you how on an upcoming show. My team's getting all the materials together now, and we will be announcing this maybe the next show or 2. I think we're getting ready. So stay tuned. But if you leave the review now, even while you have some time, you will get credit. So don't put it off. We really appreciate it. It helps other people find the show. Now, brace yourselves. It's going to be a wild ride with Cahn. Cahn, I would like to know where you are at this minute.
Oh my gosh. I'm sitting in my home office, also known as Duct Tape Theater, where I am running the empire that is IFundWomen. So I call it Duct Tape Theater because I do a lot of Zoom. I do podcasting for various media outlets. I do videos. So I'm sitting on my left is a softbox clamp, but it's broken. So it's like leaning on a table. On my right is a reflector. I'm sitting in front of a window and it's ridiculous. It's literally like Duct Tape Theater.
I'm sorry, I can't see it right now. I actually prefer, audio is nice these days. You can relax a bit, but I actually wish I could see that.
Oh, I'll get you pictures. Feel free to post them. It's a real treat. It's real magic happening over here, Allie.
So first of all, you are everything I miss about the New York area in one person, from what I can tell. You obviously get stuff done. You are really passionate about what you do. You're edgy, you're cool. Like, tell us, where did all this come from? The IFundWomen, you're obviously just obsessed with helping people and making sure that things change in the time that you're here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think it came from, I grew up in a very homogenous town in the 80s outside of Boston, a place called Canton, Massachusetts. And not only were there no Black or brown people, I was like the only Jewish kid in town, or one of the few, and was called Kike on the bus all the time. And it was Boston's known for being a pretty racist city still. But in my home, like actually in the safe haven of my home, were two very they're not like hippy dippy, but my parents are activists, they were liberal, super into music. And so in my house always was disco, funk, Motown, Black music was always being played. So I had this one world in my house where we were always like jamming out to funky music. And then I would go and get on the bus and see all these little like pale-faced white kids who, it just didn't make sense to me how my real world at my school and with my friends was this white world. But then at home, it was a very sort of diverse education on what was going on in the world. So I was aware of racial injustice from the age of 5. I mean, quite frankly. And I was always fascinated by it. And when I went away to college, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I majored in African American studies. And that was
really,
yeah. And I'm
that's fascinating
now, so do the math. I don't know, 24 years ago, 20 some odd years ago. And I made it my job to really try to understand why there was such income inequality in this country. And it all comes back to slavery. I mean, like, that's the answer to the question. And so, but then it's like, what am I going to do about it? But then just like any other college kid, especially ones that went to like Big Ten party schools like me, I was like majoring in African American studies and minoring in bong hits and going to Fish shows and Widespread Panic shows and Jazz Fest. So I wasn't like too serious about anything. And I wasn't one of those kids in college who went to those recruiting days. Like, I remember the consulting firms would come to campus and they would have these recruiting days, and I never went to them.
Because you were stoned.
Not all the time. Not all the time. But no, I just wasn't interested. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and I never really thought about it.
So the corporate thing did nothing for you, obviously. Those companies lined up. You were like, yeah, that's not it.
You know what? I don't even think I was exposed to it because my parents didn't encourage me to do it. They didn't call and say like, hey, there's this thing going on. Like, there was no helicopter parenting back then. My parents were very laissez-faire, which is, I think, why I turned out so well. And I don't know, my good friends weren't doing it. So when I graduated from college, I moved to Italy. I learned Italian my senior year. I moved to Italy and I dated a chef and I learned about food. And
I think that's a movie.
Yeah. But I worked my butt off my all through college, waitressing, bartending. I didn't even have a bartender's license. I was a short order cook. I loved to be a server. I loved to be a waitress. That was like my favorite job. If I could go back to doing anything, it would be being a waitress. And I worked through college. I saved money and I moved to Italy. And then I was there for about a year and ran out of money and moved back home like any other regular kid. And then just started interviewing for sales jobs because hello, and got a sales job at a trade show production company, which brought me to the Javits Center in New York every quarter. And that was back in 97, 98, sort of the digital revolution started to happen. And I was like, oh, I want to go work on that internet thing. So in 98, I moved to New York and I started working for salon.com, which is a web magazine, which is still.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is that still around?
It's totally still around. I was slinging banners. That's what I did. And yeah, I went from there to Google. I was employee number 213 at Google. I applied to Google through their online portal. It was wasn't even a portal. It was an email address, jobs@google.com. I sent them my resume and I was hired 2 weeks later. And that was in 2001. And my job at Google was to call on all of New England and all of the country of Canada. So
that was your territory?
That was my territory. So I spent 10 amazing years at Google, 6 on search and 4 on monetizing YouTube. And this sort of leads to why IFundWomen. I didn't know anything really about gender inequality. I was very focused on racial inequality, was not focused on gender inequality at all, because I'm confident. I've never really gotten anything I didn't want. Not in a, I don't even need to qualify that sentence. I just go for what I want and I get it. And so it never occurred to me that there were women who were discriminated against. Just never occurred to me because it didn't happen to me until I was at Google. Microaggressions started to happen. And then I was working on YouTube, and my job was to monetize the quote unquote big creators. When Google acquired YouTube in 2006, the endemic YouTube creators were young dudes, young white boys making gaming videos. And it was my job as a salesperson to go out and monetize them, and not just selling like the pre-roll ads because people were having banner blindness, but it was like, go out and do deals with, Unilever, P&G, Pepsi. I called them the CPG industry. Go out and do deals with them and get them to buy all of this sort of video in bulk. And I was like, okay, but they're not going to buy the pre-roll. So we got to figure something else out. So my team and I created the first ever native video ads on the web, which was branded entertainment. And so that was cool. And I was doing 8-figure deals for these boys. When it occurred to me, I was like, wait a minute, I'm like so done busting my butt, making tens of millions of dollars for these boys who are going to just do fine on their own. Like, where are my ladies at? Where are my female creators? And at that time, there really weren't a lot with quote unquote scale that I could package up and sell to Unilever or P&G. So I had this idea when I was at YouTube. I wanted to start YouTube for women without the trolls, because this was also the time when in the YouTube comment section, all the misogyny and the rape culture and the hate speech was starting to happen. And so I was like, there's an opportunity here. And this is back in 2007. It's like, there's an opportunity here to create a safe space for female creators where we can monetize them and drive economic opportunity for them. And I brought the idea to my boss at YouTube, a dude, and he was like, not only is that illegal, but like, it ain't going to happen. P.S. They did it like 7 years later. I have pioneer syndrome, which is a made up disease of people that have really good ideas before they're ready to go to market. Like,
you're way ahead of the curve.
It's a made up disease.
Yeah.
So I left Google after 10 years and did a stint at AOL for 3 years, which was great, and still had this itch to become an entrepreneur so I could create economic opportunity for women, specifically entrepreneurs. At the time, it was creative entrepreneurs, but then it really branched out to we're sector agnostic, and that brought me to IFundWomen. And here we are.
And here you are. So explain what that is, because I know some people, we hear there's all these people that are passionate about funding women, and you see all kinds of information and platforms. What makes this different, and why did you do it?
Yeah, this is a place where you actually can get funding. I mean, let's call a spade.
Pure and simple. But it's true. Okay, I have to tell you, I did some homework on you. To be frank, when you see this stuff lately, it's usually a bunch of fluff,
totally,
right?
100%.
It's usually companies that want to look like they're doing the right thing to help women. Or it's really dumbed down, almost insulting advice for women growing businesses. And when I checked your stuff out, and I was like, oh, wow, like this is really getting women funding. Yeah. Like this isn't some bullshit PR campaign.
Correct. Thank you. And yes, and that was so when we started IFundWomen, we're a 3-year-old seed stage company. When we started IFundWomen, we were solving a problem we ourselves had. So I'm a second-time entrepreneur. My first entrepreneur experience was a massive failure, and that's what led me to IFundWomen. And so the problem that we were trying to solve was there was a complete lack of immediate non-debt producing capital available for early stage women entrepreneurs. So from idea stage to pivoting, right? And with my first startup that was failing, so just really quickly, because I think it adds context, when I came out of Google, I was brainwashed into thinking that my tech product had to be perfect, that anything I did was going to be amazing, that I could print money, that I just had no idea how to run a business. Working at Google does not prepare you to be an entrepreneur. And so when I started my first business, which was the YouTube for Women Without the Trolls, I had done everything ass backwards. So I spent a bunch of my own money on software before it was even beta tested. I'd done no market research. I was like, everybody needs YouTube for Women Without the Trolls, and I'm going to go spend my own money to build it. And once we had built it, frankly, the product wasn't so great. It was clunky. We didn't really have any like organic traffic. Then we had to buy traffic. It was like all the horrible things that you do in your first startup where you're like, want to get everybody you're such a success. And it flopped. And as a Hail Mary to save the company, we did a crowdfunding campaign. And another thing I did no due diligence on. It was all just confidence and frankly, a little arrogance. I was like, how hard could this thing be? I know how to make video. I worked at YouTube. I'm popular. People are going to fund my thing. How hard could this be? So we put up a crowdfunding campaign to save my first company. And we put up this campaign. We had a cute little video and we thought we had a good page. And I was sitting next to my co-founder, Sarah, who's still my co-founder. We have a third co-founder, Kate. And she was editing videos. She had her headphones on. And I just put up the campaign and I just started clicking refresh. Like one of those moms that sends their kids away to camp, summer camp, and clicks the refresh button on the I was like, refresh. And I looked at Sarah and I poked her and I was like, dude, where are the magical money elves? She's like, I don't know. That's your problem, sister. Go be a CEO and find the money. I was like, oh shit. So what did I do? I called my mother and I was like, Mom, can you please go buy the t-shirt? I will pay you back. She was like, sure. So she hung up the phone and 2 hours later, she called back after she'd figured out how to use it. And this was in the summer of 2016. And she's like, I bought the t-shirt and I told your Aunt Marjorie and your cousin Janet, and cousin Janet posted it on Facebook. And it was like the light dawned on Marblehead. I was like, oh, this is how this crowdfunding thing works. This is just sales. I actually know how to do this. So I went into inside sales mode, which is what I did with my first job at the trade show production company. I made 80 phone calls a day, getting people to come to this Javits Center show. So I went into inside sales mode and I made as many calls a day as I needed to. And I created this whole set of tools for myself to manage my crowdfunding campaign that has now become the cornerstone of the IFundWomen method coaching program.
Oh, wow. So you were like mapping out the protocol at that time.
Yeah.
And that's what you built this on.
Yeah. But just not knowing it. I thought I was saving my company, but really I was building IFundWomen. So when it was done and we had raised the cash we needed, I was like, wait a minute. Why isn't everybody talking about crowdfunding for cash as the first stop on every entrepreneur's journey to prove demand for their product or service before they invest in supply?
You know what? Why it's a really good question. Yeah. Like, why don't we hear about it? Is it not as sexy? Do they think that's for, college kids, the crowdfunding? Like, why is it? Because I've really noticed that.
Yeah, I think that first of all, no, people way back 3 years ago, it was Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And it was for consumer products or, 94% of the highest grossing campaigns were by white male creators in gaming, consumer tech. It was like the Pebble Watch, the speaker cooler. And then it was like Fund Veronica Mars. It was like, creative projects. It wasn't a place for like a SaaS B2B solution to be, or like a women-owned business or, any sort, IFundWomen is topic agnostic, sector agnostic. So we have everything from like blockchain fintech app developers to farm to table restaurants to a woman who's developing a knitting needle that counts your stitches to a med tech engineer who's developing something for epileptic seizures. There just wasn't a crowdfunding platform that was speaking to women B, talking about it as your first round of capital to give you just that immediate cash to build your proof of concept, build your pilot, build your prototype, and test your product or service or your mission or vision or idea out on people that you know in your personal, professional, and social network to see if people want to buy into it. Like, you've got to test demand and prove demand before you invest in supply, whether it's like buying the fabric for your bags or, in my case, it was wasting years of my life chasing an equity round that I was never going to get. I would love those 2 years back. But yeah, people weren't talking about it. And so IFundWomen was really the first to frame crowdfunding as the first stop on every female entrepreneur's journey. For so many reasons. One, because A, you're not giving up any control of your company. You are not going into credit card debt, which is what we do to fund our companies. You are marketing. Essentially, crowdfunding is marketing. It's when you, the entrepreneur, go out and sell your product, your service, your mission, your vision, your dream to people who who want to buy into it. So it's a test on product market fit. It's a test on pricing. It's a test on audience and audience messaging. And so our whole program, we have a fintech product, which is the crowdfunding and grant technology. So anybody can come on IFundWomen. We have men as well too, mixed gender co-founder teams, bring it on. Anyone can start a project on IFundWomen and start crowdfunding, and they can get cash in their bank account starting 3 days after they start their campaign. So that's a great way to just drive really quick cash so you can start building your thing. Mm-hmm. We also have an on-demand e-coaching platform where you can learn everything from obviously how to crowdfund, but also how to raise an angel round or how to raise a seed round or how to take out an SBA loan or a PPP loan, how to apply for that. Or even more important, how and why to set up your Google Analytics, how to do Facebook retargeting ads, how to write a business plan. So we're not about advice at all because we don't know everything at all, but we are about tactical information to show you how to do a specific thing that we actually are experts on. So we've got subject matter experts who are on staff. So for example, our product manager, Maya Brooks, everybody coaches probably like 5 hours a week. You just block your calendar. So Maya coaches tech product for non-technical founders. She coaches how to set up your Google Analytics. And this is a private Zoom session. So if you can imagine, like, getting your Google Analytics set up and explained to you in 30 minutes is awesome.
Yeah. So is this all free with the membership? Is there a paid membership? Tell us the model. I'm not clear.
Yeah. So on the crowdfunding and grant side, we take 5% of anything you raise, just like the other platform.
Okay. So
if you don't raise any money, we don't make any money. On the coaching side, it is a subscription program. Our entry level is free. Our entry level is normally $9, and it includes all of our Zoom workshops led by experts. We have like 2 or 3 a day. We've made them free for everybody during COVID because we just want people to, first of all, they're semi-private. It's anywhere from 30 people to 100 people in a Zoom, but they're getting access to insane experts on a specific topic that somebody might be stuck on. And so that learning and we give everybody the recording afterwards and the notes, and there's always worksheets and stuff. So we're very micro-targeted on specific topics. So the workshops are free. We have them every day. So if you're listening to this, come to ifundwomen.com/workshops and sign up free. And then if you want private coaching, we have 2 options. One is a monthly membership for $199, and the other one is an annual membership for $899, and you get 2 private sessions a month, which is a lot when you think about it. Like, you could get me twice a month telling you what to do for $199. It's pretty good.
And you get to see the duct tape theater.
You get to see duct tape theater. I could teach you how to do a lot of things. Yeah. So it's a subscription model on the coaching.
Okay. Brilliant. All right. Now, on the flip side, if women are listening going, you know what, this sounds like somewhere I'd love to, I want to give back. I'd like to find out how to get started, and maybe they have dreams of angel investing, but this maybe, is this, would you call this that, or is this more becoming a crowdfunder? Like, if they want to get involved at a bigger level, what are options for women who want to help?
So it's such a good question, Allie. So There's there's multiple ways that people can help. So if you are listening to this and you're just a regular, awesome feminist who wants to, invest $100 into a bunch of startups that you think have promise, you come to iFundWomen and it says fund startups, and you can go and search through different categories that you're interested in. You can search for different keywords, and you can just go and put anything from $20 to $100 to $1,000, whatever you want to do. It's a cash donation, and you're either pre-buying a product, or you're buying a service, or you're buying swag, or you're just giving money to help.
And let's make this clear. This is not truly an investment. I mean, it's a donation. You don't get anything back later.
Correct.
that is guaranteed or arranged.
Correct. You are not making an equity investment in these companies. You are buying a product, you're buying a service, or you're just making a donation. The next level is we've got a very sophisticated brokered grant product that we just rolled out, where essentially, if you want to give a grant to a specific type of entrepreneur, whether it's a specific demographic or a specific sector, you can do that through our platform. So what we do is we've got, tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of data on who they are and what stage they're at, et cetera. So let's just say you wanted to give, the Allie Brown grant, and it was for $5,000 grant to a company that is in a specific sector, in a specific part of the country. Maybe you want to do it to a woman of color, whatever it is. We can go through and slice and dice our data and serve you up options. And then you can give a grant, which is also not an investment. It's a grant, but that's another way for you to participate. And then the third way for you to participate is iFundWomen is a seed stage startup. We closed our seed round, and we are going to be raising an A round. So we are going to be looking for investors for our A. And we're not, it's for angels. It's interesting because our seed round, so many people on the cap table. Let's just keep it real. Okay, so our seed round is not the traditional seed round. We thought it was going to be, but it turns out that Sand Hill Road is not super interested in women entrepreneurs, like at all. They're interested in crypto and cyber and things that are war-based and, gaming and, blockchain and things that we do not have on our deck. So going to a traditional VC was not the route that we had to take for our seed round. So we decided to focus on New York City, which has become the number 2 place for women-led startups to raise capital. We focused on funds that were funding other fabulous lady brands like The Wing and Daily Harvest. So we have funds like Able Partners, G9 Ventures, Amy Griffin's fund, and others who were all sort of these early investors in Goop and The Wing and things like that. And then we've got power angels. So Rebecca Minkoff and Sally Krawcheck and Dan Schulman, who's the CEO of PayPal. And so we put together sort of this fairly large group of very well-known power angels. And that, with a bunch of funds, made up our $2 million seed round. So it was kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts. However, we have the most supportive group of investors ever.
I mean, talk about alignment.
Absolutely.
And isn't that what you want?
And we're looking at that for our next round as well. So, if you have listeners that are, really wealthy and want to get involved, Karen at ifundwomen.com. Send me a note. I haven't gone out with our deck yet, but I feel really good about raising money right now because even though we're in the time of COVID, there is money out there to be raised. And iFundWomen is providing an insane service to entrepreneurs because, as you know, and we talked about earlier, there's all this government assistance that's happening right now. And I know that this podcast will probably air in a couple of weeks. And I'm sure that the government assistance through the CARES Act will still be a shit show. Hopefully it'll be less of a shit show.
Yeah. You posted a picture of, was that literally like a Commodore 64 that you posted?
I tried to.
Can we go there for a minute? That caught my eye for sure because I was following your social and getting to know you a bit before we talked. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, she's really calling it. Like she's saying, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
This is a mess. I mean, do you think it's almost a joke though that we expected it to work?
I think that I think to be fair, I think that COVID came on so fast, so strong in this country, and we're not going to go into politics or any of that stuff, but it came on so fast that the government was like, we have to put out this aid, this CARES Act, which is $348 billion of forgivable loans to businesses under 500 people and sole proprietors and 1099 contractors, et cetera, to stem unemployment. That is the purpose of the Paycheck Protection Plan.
Right.
So that you don't lay off your people. So they announced it about a week too late, but okay, like, look, this all happened in the matter of a couple weeks. What has gone wrong is that, so you saw from my Commodore 64 imagery and analogy that what's happened is the SBA is a government agency. They are working on technology that was built 1 million years ago, and they are not set up at all to handle the volume that they were just onslaughted with. And so I don't want to get into the weeds about like the technology and the mapping and the whole thing, but the bottom line is it is definitely a shit show. They are supposed to deploy almost $350 billion in capital by the end of June. As of yesterday, less than $2 billion has been deployed. And
no one seems to know anybody who's got a check either. Like there's this rumor that like a friend of a friend of a friend got her check. I know what I mean? That's kind of the status right now. Like no one knows for sure anybody who's gotten a payment.
I've been like on like a witch hunt, and I've been like in every lady group in like over engaging. I'm like, if anybody gets their loan, like please give me information because I want to share it. So here's some positive information. So people are getting their loans mostly through small local credit unions. I have heard of nobody, not one person, and I have a lot of friends who are banking with Chase, B of A, and Cap One. I have not heard of anybody that's gotten their money from them. I have heard that people have gotten money through First Republic, who's kind of going through a fintech to do it, but very few. But mostly are getting them through their local community banks that they happen to bank with. But what's not happening is you're supposed to take the average payroll in a month and multiply that by 2.5 times, and that's your loan amount. And people are getting, 1/5 of what they have asked for. So the loan amounts are smaller. So people are getting money. It's not what they expected. They'll definitely spend it on their payroll and get the loan forgiven. So that's like one good thing. But I know that this is not doing what it's supposed to do, which is, stop unemployment, because it's just too late. People are going to are laying people off. I think we're at like 20 million people. We're at 16 million. Pardon me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about it, we're only like most companies are only about 3 payrolls into this thing. Right. If you pay twice a month too. And so like, I really feel now, we're recording this like mid-April. I think there's going to be just a lot more layoffs by May, because I think some people have had the cash put aside and they're trying to hold on. But
seeing people come to iFundWomen. As I was telling you, we saw a 3x increase between February and March of people coming to iFundWomen for funding. And the difference between the sort of the market opportunists and the excited like entrepreneurs who have an idea and want to launch it on our platform versus the ones that were coming during COVID to say like, oh shit, I need to raise cash right now. And iFundWomen happens to be the only platform that gives you cash right away. You don't have to wait till your campaign is over. We run the credit cards right away. We send the money to either your Stripe or your PayPal, and then it goes right into your bank account and you get daily deposits. So if you're listening to this, lady business owners, and you need cash, like come on iFundWomen. There's no shame in the game. We have Series A stage companies that are raising money for payroll. We have, brick and mortar companies that have been around forever that are the cornerstone of Main Street and our economy, frankly. The nail shop, my salon, all these people.
Oh my gosh, we can't let the salons go away. Yes. Can we all talk about that for a minute?
Girl,
Can we do a campaign, like shameless vanity campaign, like save the nail salon,
save my lash lady, save my hair lady.
Yeah.
Save my
SaveTheLashLadies.com. Okay, that's made for media. You take that and run with it. But like,
yeah, save all the people.
But see, those are most of those small, especially the women service-based businesses. Are you saying that even they, they may not have this scalable company, but could they go on your platform?
Everybody who needs cash should come on and do a campaign.
Okay. And then who drives the campaign though? Like who brings people to their page? Like, are they supposed to go out to their networks and get it started? Or do you bring people, through the media and stuff you're doing?
So both.
Or both.
So the biggest myth about crowdfunding is the one that I bought into when I did my campaign, was that there are magical money elves waiting to just sprinkle money. That's not the case. You have to bring the people. But because iFundWomen is a smaller company and we're just focused on women's businesses, we have a much brighter light shining on us. And we also promote our campaigns. We promote our entrepreneurs. We do grants almost every day live on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. We do constant grants, constant promotion of your campaign. So you're not just crowdfunding alone, you're crowdfunding with a crew of ladies behind you. It's like the best group chat, the best group chat hyping you up along the way, plus sprinkling money into your campaign. But for the nail salons, let's just take that as an example, or your lash lady or lash man, whatever. I don't want to be gendered, but my person's a lady. If she put up a campaign on iFundWomen, I can tell you that every single one of my friends who gets lashes would be donating, right?
It's true. Yep.
So call to action, people. Come and start a campaign. It is free to start it. And it takes you 20 minutes. You don't even have to have a video. If you have a video, it's great. But
I love it.
We don't require it because we know that in times of crisis, like no one's their best self on camera, right? Not that you have to be your best self, but you want to be when you're presenting your business. Like, even though you are doing crowdfunding in this case for COVID relief, you still want to present in a certain way. So if you can do that with a video, that's great. If you don't want to and you just want to do it with imagery, that's fine too. We make it really flexible. You can also change your goal. You can extend your end date. Everything is malleable on the platform.
So there's no reason not to do this, really.
Zero reasons not to.
Okay.
It's risk-free.
I love it. So it's literally just ifundwomen.com. That's where we go.
Yeah.
Great. And then, to wrap up, Karen, I feel like we could do a series of shows. You're awesome. we could go down the rabbit hole with a few of these topics. When you think about, not only what's going on right now, but really, who you've become in this process, it's fascinating to me. I would have never guessed. To me, it seems like you would have come out of school knowing exactly your career track and what you're doing. And, we have a little more in common than I thought. Because my 20s, there was one point I was working at a publishing company, teaching step aerobics and selling vitamins off a bicycle. Like I was obviously just trying things on. And my parents were just like, what? Yeah. They're like, what? It was in Boston, then New York. And, but in the end, like it really, when I look back now on how my career, if you want to call it that, evolved from the beginning, it's like a book and every chapter leads to the next and it leads to who I've become in the process. Yeah. And so when you talk with women that you're mentoring and who you've become, can you give maybe 3 bits of your best advice right now? They could be quick tips or you could go into a little more detail, but that's how I'd love to wrap up.
Absolutely. Okay. So my first quick tip is have your personal pitch honed. Whether you're at a cocktail party and you're telling people what you're passionate about or what you're doing or the problem you're trying to solve in your career, have that pitch honed. And then obviously if it's your business pitch, have a pitch honed. If you are stuck in an elevator with somebody, you need to tell them exactly what your company does, the problem you're solving, and why are you uniquely qualified to solve it. Done. So that's a honed pitch. That's number 1. Number 2, ask for more than you're worth and be ready to negotiate. So that's the negotiation tip. You always start with more than what you're worth and negotiate down if you have to. But most of the time, especially in this age of women, especially women in the corporate workplace, especially women of color who are listening to this, you're unicorns right now. Everybody wants to hire you. Like Google, Facebook, Twitter, they all have quotas for women and people of color. So ask for a laughable amount of money. I guarantee you're going to get it because you're going to fill someone's quota. As fucked up as that sounds, that's a great piece of advice. And then my third piece of advice is do not quit your day job to be an entrepreneur. It pays like shit. there are no benefits, and most startups fail. So if you really want to be an entrepreneur, if you're super passionate about that, knitting needle that counts the stitches, you build it in your spare time and you prove demand by crowdfunding before you invest in supply. Those are my tips.
I love it. Karen, thank you for joining us today. We hope to have you on again.
Thank you so much. I would love to come back.
Take care. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new shows every week. And I'd love if you left us a review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. And I'd love to hear from you. Come join the conversation online. You'll mostly find me on Instagram, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and more. Just head to alliebrown.com. You will find them all there. And you can also learn about upcoming opportunities to meet in person. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you've tuned in.